At the end of the next series, you will know everything about Mrs. Flood.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That's enough to know. Has anyone got any questions?
Hello and welcome back to another video where today I want to talk a little bit about Mrs. Flood because people reckon they might have figured out the identity of the Mrs. Flood character via, of all things, a brand new product listed on the Forbidden Planet website. And I wanted to talk about this theory a little bit, as well as Anita Dobson's recent comments on Mrs. Flood and where we can expect her to go in Season 2. So if you're interested in all of that, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you're new. We're trying to get to 25,000 subscribers and it would be really appreciated if we could do that soon. But with that said, let's get right into it. So what do I mean when I say people might have figured it out via a product on Forbidden Planet? Well, if you go on the Forbidden Planet website right now, you'll see a few things. Obviously, you'll see the brand new Ruby Sunday and Shooty Gatwa Doctor action figures. But right next to that, you will see a line of merch with the Black Guardian on it from the 5th Doctor era, except he's not titled the Black Guardian, he's titled the Guardian of Chaos. And why this is significant is pretty apparent. In the Russell T Davies era, the gods of this universe have different subtitles. As we know from Sutek's monologue in Legend Ruby Sunday, the Toymaker is the god of games, the Maestro is the god of music, the Trickster is the god of traps, etc, etc, etc. So, why retitle the Black Guardian on official merchandise if that wasn't at least somewhat relevant to the future of Doctor Who? Now, I have seen people make the joke that they're making this change so that he's not called the Black Guardian because, you know, black race. I don't think it's got anything to do with that, and I think that'd be a bizarre choice. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a choice Doctor Who has made recently would leave me scratching my head, but I just don't think that that would be a choice that they would make. I think more likely is that it's meant to symbolise what's supposed to happen in the show and really big up these characters. But surely Mrs. Flood wouldn't be the Black Guardian, right? That wouldn't even make any sense. After all, what's the predominant colour we see her wearing in the finale to Season 1? White! Which is why I believe she's not the Black Guardian, but rather the White Guardian. And what's interesting about the White Guardian is that he does have a nickname in Doctor Who. He's called the Guardian of Light in Time. Both of them were created by Rassilon from The Matrix shortly after his official death. The Toymaker is familiar with the Guardians, claiming there were 6 and not 2. And what's interesting about the White Guardian is, if you watch Key to Time, the White Guardian is the good one of the 2 Guardians, which is somewhat interesting considering Mrs. Flood's tendencies don't seem to be particularly noble in what we've seen of her so far. And obviously, if you look at the wiki, it says that the White Guardian chose good in the same way the Black Guardian embodied chaos and evil, which is presumably where the name God of Chaos comes from. So what do I think's going on with all of this? Well, I do think it's possible that one of the other names for the White Guardian is the Guardian of Light in Time. That could very well be shortened to the Guardian of Time. And the reason she's acting all mysterious and kind of pushing things in certain directions is not because she's particularly evil, but more so because she is trying to engineer a certain outcome for the Doctor, maybe in order to help defeat the Black Guardian. What that outcome is, I have no idea, but I think it's definitely a possibility that's worth considering. Interestingly, a couple of weeks ago at Cardiff Comic Con, Anita Dobson herself made some remarks on the future of Mrs. Flood, which was nice, because I was actually there a few weeks ago. Speaking to fans at Film and Comic Con Cardiff this past weekend, Dobson said, "At the end of the next series, you will know everything about Mrs. Flood." She went on, "At the end of the next series, there's a line she says, and I thought, that's a bit odd for her to say at this point. So even at that point, she still adds another twist or a turn, so you're not quite sure. You think she's going to be one thing, but you don't know. She's always got a few things in her pocket." So that line really got me thinking when she said it about this whole White Guardian theory. We all think that Mrs. Flood is evil. We all think that Mrs. Flood is some kind of megalomaniacal, maniac bent on universal destruction and dominance. But maybe she isn't. maybe that's the character she's playing in order to manufacture events in a certain way. After all, let's not forget, she was the one who encouraged Ruby to board the TARDIS at the end of Church on Ruby Road. In a very similar way to how Missy phone-called Clara in Series 7, or it's revealed later on in Series 8, but it happens in Series 7, perhaps she is manufacturing events around the Doctor, but unlike Missy, for positive reasons. You're never quite sure where she's going, it's nice to create a bit of mystery. After the end of Season 14, Whovians are still none the wiser as to who Ruby Sunday's kind neighbour actually is, especially with her ability to break the fourth wall and stare into the soul of viewers. We do know that we'll certainly be getting more answers around her true identity next season, though Dobson herself is not saying much. Obviously, we don't know much about, the villains of Season 2, so this is kind of, an early stages theory. We do know that a boyfriend gets introduced in Season 2. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler for Ruby. We've seen him filming. Perhaps it's the case that that's the Black Guardian's way into the Doctor's dynamic, and we're going to see them kind of acknowledge each other in a way that makes us think, hey, there's something going on between these two. Alternatively, it could be a double red herring, because if you watch the original Key to Time story, the Black Guardian does disguise himself as the White Guardian. So maybe it's the case that the Black Guardian is deliberately dressing in white to frame the White Guardian for things the Black Guardian is doing. This theory is a little bit bizarre, and I realise it's probably not my most sort of coherent and logical, but at the same time, I just can't in good faith believe that piece of merchandise is a coincidence. I mean, to be fair, they have gotten merchandise wrong in the past. They do call Jimbo from Wildly Yonder just the robot, but it just feels like a very deliberate choice to rename a character for no real reason. I mean, they've done classic merchandise before, and the names have remained the same, so to go out of your way to change the Black Guardian's name, particularly to something longer, which would likely make it slightly more complex to print, I don't know, it's an interesting thing to me, and having it linked directly to Chaos, and obviously that's what the Black Guardian is known for creating, and, that's not a god that we've seen before, I think it makes sense. I think that's kind of a good idea for a big band, and obviously Mrs. Flood being our link to that as someone who's been there from the start would make sense, and I think it would be a really interesting thing for them to do for the next series. But let me know what your thoughts are on who Mrs. Flood is. Drop your theories in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.